So welcome everyone who's here live to hear Brett, and everyone who's watching the recording. I'm Tim Kitchen from Adobe. I'm based in the Melbourne office for this week, and Brett's up there in Sydney. Say hi to everyone, Brett.
G'day everyone, how are you?
And I'm just allowing more people in the room. In fact, Brett, I'll get you to allow people in while I do this little promo section.
Not a problem, Tim.
Just want to encourage everyone who's watching this, either live or watching the recording, to make the most of the Adobe Education Exchange, because it is a wonderful portal. It's a fantastic free resource for teachers from kindergarten right through to higher education. And as you can see, this screen grab was taken probably yesterday at some point, and we have 208,000. We've got over 208,000 teachers on this site, and it's teachers helping teachers. So I want you to get involved, not only to post your own resources there, but have a look at the professional learning. Obviously, this live event is part of that professional learning. So keep promoting it out, because I'd love to get more people involved in this particular portal. The other big promo that we've got is to promote the helpx.adobecom resource, which is a fantastic one-stop shop for anyone, literally. It's not just for teachers. This one's for students. It's for people who are just interested in learning more about Adobe products. Literally, virtually every one of our Adobe products in all three of our cloud areas, yes, right, we have 3 cloud areas now at Adobe, they're all covered through this particular one-stop shop. So what you can find is beginners classes to full-on master classes on just about every one of our products. So it's a great resource to be aware of. And of course, our Adobe Campus Leader program is fantastic, because it's a first sort of step. It's a pathway program to becoming an Adobe education leader. Any educator who's interested in being part of our global leadership programs, I encourage you to apply to become an Adobe Campus Leader. And the Adobe PD Catalog is the May version is now out and published through Adobe PD Catalog. It's a bit.ly URL that you can see there, and it summarizes all the professional learning that's on the Adobe Education Exchange in a format that's got the APAC-friendly times, as well as the other sort of North American times as well. The other live events coming up after this one, we've got one, these are the ones listed now, June 3rd, that's June 3rd for American time, June 4th for APAC times. And then the one that's sort of more friendly for APAC times is this one coming up here, Designing for Community Engagement. And this is an ACL, an Adobe Campus Leader named Jessica Gauci. She's a fantastic young educator, and you'll really enjoy being part of that live event. So that's enough of the promos. I'm just going to jump straight to sharing and introduce Brett. Brett, if you wouldn't mind sharing your screen now, and I'll allow people in as they're coming through. And Brett's a primary school teacher in New South Wales, in the western part of Sydney, and I've had the pleasure of visiting his school and met Brett on many occasions, and he's a fantastic educator. Love to see what you've got for us today. Over to you, Brett.
Okay, thanks for the intro, Tim. You're probably all seeing a black screen right now. That's because I've gone immediately in and just started up Muse, but I don't have anything started as yet. For those of you who said that you are already familiar with Muse, you'll probably already know the first few steps. But for those of you who haven't ever used it before, it'll be starting right from the beginning. Like with most programs, when it first starts up, you don't get much. But if we come up and we go File, excuse me, New Site, we come up with this little GUI that gives us a couple of options. Essentially, we really only want to look at 3 things to begin with. The first thing is here, the initial layout. Now, I tend to start things as a desktop layout, but we've got the option to start it as a tablet or a phone layout to begin with, depending on what our final purpose is. But for creating a teacher website, working within a school, I find that probably working in a desktop layout to begin with is probably the one that we would want. The other thing that we probably want to look at down here is the resolution. Now, I don't think there's a great deal of need in a teacher website to run it as a high DPI site. A photographer or a graphic designer might have a use for that, but I don't think that a teacher would probably choose that, so we'll leave it as standard and possibly change the language over to whatever your preferred version of English or language that you're using would be. I'm just going to leave it as desktop, standard and English USA for the purposes of this little tutorial here. And we say OK. Now, what we are left with is two little screens. We're left with this one down the bottom here, which is a master, which I'll get into in a moment, and we have a home screen. There's basically two different ways that we can sort of begin this and tackle it. We can either start on our master and say, okay, how do I want my sort of predominant pages to look, or I can start up here and I can start to say, how do I want my layout to go? How do I want my website to flow? Now, the way that we can do that one is we can say, alright, I may want a couple of top-level pages, I may want some that fall down from the home page, and we can start to branch out and tier off from that just by clicking the little plus sign on the left and right and move from there. I'm going to leave mine as a home page at the top level with 3 pages. We might go 4 down the bottom. We can obviously continue on down the list there. For now, I'm going to leave these untitled and I'll leave this as the home page. What I'll do then is I'm going to jump straight into the master. Now, for anyone who's done web design before will understand what a master is for, but if I double click on that, I now get this little page that comes up, which is going to fall into the category of my master page. Now, what I start with is my colors, my theme. Now, I'm probably going to break a few rules, a few of those golden rules of web design, but I actually like my pages to be quite dark with lighter text on them. So before I even begin, I can fill my page, and I can also fill what my browser will see. And I'm going to do them black for now. What we get here is 2 little tabs at the top there. I've got my master, which I'm looking at now, and I've got back to where we began. You'll notice that this master has now applied to everything because I've got multiple A masters. Like when we were adding more pages at the top tier, we can add more masters down here, and we can have multiple master pages. To apply them up to the top level, simply drag them and drop them. Now I've got B master there, C master over there, depending on what our purposes are. I'm going to double click back down here on my master page and start to put some content in now. Now, I think it's really important to put most of the navigation buttons for a website on the master page so it applies across the board and goes to everything. The easiest and most simple way that I've found to start putting buttons on here is to come straight over to the Widget Library, which is a little pot of gold, and don't be confused by this one that says buttons. I'm actually going to open up the one that says menus, because really what we want is a menu for all the pages that we're going to, and I'm going to just say, let's put a vertical menu on. Now if I drag and drop that right there, I get a home button, but at the moment, by default, it's only going to navigate me to top level pages. Now if I come back over here, the top level page is the home screen. So what I want to do is I want to click on that little blue arrow there, and I want to say, well, I want that to navigate me to all pages. We can manually set them, but for the purposes of this, I'm going to stick to all pages. And we can then start moving and changing our home button a little, because I think it's probably a little large for this page. It automatically names them, whatever names you've got over here in your actual navigation screen, in your plan. If I was to double click on this one and call it Photoshop, and I come over to my master over here, you notice it's automatically changed. So any changes that I make here within my plan view are going to automatically change in my button system. So on that master, you may want to put in some other features, we might want to put in some other design. So what I'll start by doing is I'll start saying, okay, let's put in maybe a heading, maybe a text box. Type Photoshop, obviously I'm on a black background, and I want my text to be a little different, like in any other program. We just modify our font, modify our text, do something that we like. Now, this is all well and good, but it's a little distracting when you're looking at buttons that look like this. The thing is, that's not actually what they really look like. So far we've looked at the plan view, we've looked at what each individual page looks like when you're editing it and designing it, but there's actually a third view on top of that as well. If I come up to the top right hand corner of my screen, you'll see that there's also a preview button. If I click preview, it shows me what that page would look like online. It gives me a little preview view without actually launching it in the browser. It's doing it within Muse. If I hover over, it's showing me that I've actually got a rollover. I've actually got those buttons there, and that's the way that page would roughly look within a browser, without actually launching it in the browser for now. It's just a quick preview. And I'll come back to my master page. Now, putting content in is vastly the purpose of this. We really want to be able to put lots and lots and lots of content in there as a teacher to build up our teaching program, so we can have an online program and we can do it from there. Now, essentially, there's a few different things that we're going to want to put in there. We're probably going to want to put images, we're going to want to put probably a lot of documents, and we want to be able to edit them quickly and easily. Now, the methods that I've sort of worked out to do this are, if it's an image, I like to just go File, Place, I find my image, Open, drag and drop. Drag it out to the size that I like it. We've got all the controls that we would normally have while it's selected. I'm just going to copy that, Control C, Control V, pop one over the other side. Now, what I'm starting to build up here is something that looks Flash, but it's probably not really that functional. Other than the button system, everything's just pictures, it's just images. What we really want to work on as teachers, and when we're working on our program, is probably putting a lot of content in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to my website, back to my plan. I did it on my master page. Probably a very good error that I've made there. That's applied across the board. I'm going to delete those, and I'm going to delete that as well. Delete. Come back to my website. Let's come back to my Photoshop page and put it all on there. Again, I'll change my font. And drag it all around. Now, again, File, Place, open that, drag that out, Control C, Control V, pop it over the other side. I've got my little guidelines down the bottom there, telling me that I've snapped it all into place and everything is perfectly lined up. You'll notice that as that comes up, it's automatically extending my page, it's automatically coming back up again to fill the content, and it gives me those little guides. It shows me a center, and it shows me that the top of those two images are aligned. When I come back to my plan view, my Photoshop page now looks like a Photoshop page, and my master is still my master for the rest of those. If I wanted to drag that master over there, I could drag it and dump it on. It's going to apply the master, but it keeps all those other features that I've put in there. I can change it back to the B master, it stays that way. I'm going to actually apply master A to that, so it's uniform across the board for now. And I've got my home button, and I've got all my drop down menu buttons there as well. Now, how do we actually go about putting content onto this page, which is essentially the most important thing that we want to do? What I'll do here is I'll say make a text box. I'll make my text white so it stands out on my black background. Like I say, probably breaking all the rules of graphic design, but I like it. And I'm going to say link, because it's going to be a link. The thing is, it's not a hyperlink at this stage. What I want to do is put content there, so when I click on it, it opens up an actual PDF document that can be saved by other teachers, it can be viewed by anyone, and it's a functional piece. Now what I do, that little text box there, I come up to hyperlinks, but I don't want to link it to one of the other pages. I don't want to link it to a website. What I want to link it to is a file. I've got on my desktop, news uploads, I'll come across, I've got how to animate PDF, open, it goes in there. Now the thing is, you don't really see anything happen. It's one of those things that I now know that if I click on there and click back to there, it tells me that it's hyperlinked out to how to animate text PDF. Okay, well, how do I see that? If I come back to my preview screen, refresh, come back to my Photoshop page, sorry, preview, this here, if I click on it, nothing happens. It's one of those things that this is only a superficial view of the overall preview. If I want to see how this really works, I'm going to have to actually publish it. And it doesn't actually load that until it publishes, which is one of those things that took me a little while to get my head around. That if I click on that, after it's been published and after it's been uploaded to the web, then it'll boot over, because of the fact that this, come back to my website, come back to this page, this here doesn't actually get stored and uploaded until such time as you publish. If I come across and I want to view it as a real web page, I can say File, I can go Preview Page in Browser, or Preview Site in Browser. For this purpose, I'll just go Preview this page. It'll automatically open your default browser, bring it up, click on that, there we go. Once it's actually in the browser, there it goes, back and forth like any other website. This website's not live yet, but it's giving me a preview view of how it actually will function once it's uploaded, once it's saved. I'll close down my browser now. Now, the other thing that I find really handy when making these types of websites is this button and menu system. At the moment it's hanging and staying in place, it's staying in that one spot. If all of a sudden my site became really large, which they do tend to do as teachers, we're going to end up with a page that goes all the way down and gets bigger and bigger. And I'm going to put a couple of things over here so we can see what's going on. Control C, Control V, I'm going to put another one, and I'm just going to bring them all the way down so we can see if a page is really quite long, really quite large, we're going to end up with a whole bunch of things right down the page. Oh, come on, keep snapping back up because I'm going a bit too far. Now, that little button at the top there, you don't want to have to scroll all the way back up to the top to go back and find your navigation system. So what we can do here is, if I click on that, and I come over to my Widget Library again, but rather than going to another little thing that I'm putting in there, I'm going to go to Scroll Effects. Now, that button, what I really want that to do, I want to go Motion. Come on, Enable. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually switch this back to white background so I can see what's happening here. It's easy to switch back and forth. Ah, of course, another good error that I've made. What I've done here is, I'm trying to edit this, I can't. I'm on my Photoshop page. This exists on my master page. So if I want to edit this, I have to come back to my master page. There's my master page. If I click on there, go to my Widget Library, go to Scroll Effects, or I can go immediately straight in here. I want to create a motion. Now, the motion that I want is for this to come down, and I want it to scroll at the same speed that my mouse is scrolling at. So I want it to follow me down the page. So what I really want this to do, I don't want it to move horizontally. I do want it to move vertically. And its final motion is back to 0. It's in the same position that it was in on the screen when it started. Now if I come back to my preview screen, as I scroll down a page, it'll follow me. But I need to come back to my Photoshop page so I can see how that will apply on a page that is really, really, really long. So I'll preview that page. As I come down, that's now going to come along with me. So my navigation button is hanging in that position, staying at 0 and scrolling at the same speed as the rest of my page. Come back to my plan view now. So I've spoken about having a master page. I've spoken about putting content onto the actual pages themselves. I've spoken about putting buttons in place. Now, what we can also do is we can put more content than that in there. Like I said, this little pot of gold over here, this little widgets library, some of the other things that we can put in that are super handy, especially for flipped classrooms, especially for content that we want to view in the classroom. If we come down to social, and then we scroll right down and we find YouTube, we can actually pop a YouTube window straight on our page. Drag, and I'll drop it straight on there. This little video ID here is the thing that we really want to change. That's the bit that we put the link to the video in. Again, something that I made errors with when I was first doing this. I thought that I could put a URL in there. That's not the case at all. If I bump over to my browser here and I come to the 25 years of Photoshop video, we've got to come down, like other websites, I've got to click on share. That share down the bottom there, copy that share link, that's the one that we need to put in there. I'll come back over to Muse. I click on the little blue arrow on the side there, my little menu, and I'll go Command V, put that in, enter. That'll then automatically update that YouTube video and it'll be ready to view. Just like when I started putting the links into the other page, it's not something that'll preview here. It's not something that'll even preview when I click on the preview window. It's something that'll only happen in browser because it's a browser action and it's something that works in that way. We've gotten to 6:25. I know that we wanted to actually open up to some questions before we stop this. I might jump back into the room just for a moment and see how we're going and see if there's any questions that I can field at this point.
Brett, I can tell you now there's no questions in the pod. Everyone's been really interested in what you've been saying, and particularly the parallax scrolling thing is something which drew some comments about something they hadn't seen before, so that's terrific. If anyone does have any questions, please go into the chat and ask them. Because we've got about 4 or 5 minutes left, is there some other things you want to show us, maybe how to publish the site or...
well, that's what I was going to get into next,
Go straight to that now, Brett.
Okay, great. Alrighty. 3 ways to publish. When you've got your website and it's ready and it looks amazing like this one does, we've looked at our plan view, we've looked at it. Oh, hang on, whoa, share the screen. Sorry, I'll come back. You're so used to doing it. Alright, all good to go. So, we've got our plan view, like we looked at over here. We've got our design view. We've got our preview, which gives us that little pseudo in-browser sort of look about it without actually bumping into the browser. 4th button on the side here is publish. Now, there's a little menu on the side there. You can publish to FTP host. You can publish to Business Catalyst, which is the Adobe publishing engine, or you can export your entire website as a HTML, and it'll give you all the code to upload that to whatever host engine that you're using. If you publish to Business Catalyst, which is what I do, I publish all my sites to Business Catalyst, it comes up with this little prompt. It asks you to name your site, and you click OK. It's that simple. Once you've done that, your website's online. It's done. Publishing through other web hosts depends on who they are and the way that they function. Most of them are pretty simple. Most of them are either going to ask you for the HTML, and away you go from there. Or if you've got a different FTP host, all you do, click on there, it brings up, asks you for who that is, what your username is, what your password is, and away you go from there, which is a very simple process. The publishing side of it is remarkably simple. The only other thing that I really did want to cover, because the publishing side is so simple, is actually back here when we're in our plan view. When we first opened up, we had our desktop view, which is what we picked by default. We've also got tablet and phone view. If I click on either of those, it'll ask me, well, what do I want to do here? Do I want to copy from the desktop view? Copy the site plan, copy the page attributes, copy the browser fill. All of those options will then come across onto the tablet view. They're probably going to fall off the sides. They're probably going to move around. But if I click OK, it'll bring it across into this. I then say, okay, that's cool. I double click on them, and I start to then modify and put my content in that way. So when somebody visits on a tablet, when somebody visits on a phone, we can actually then have multiple views that that'll function, and it will work that way. Because I found that when I first started publishing my teaching program, a lot of the time you do want to just pull the phone out and have a quick look and see what, something rudimentary like a playground duty or something like a roster might be, and you don't want to have to pull out the desktop, you don't want to have to try and find the file. I've found that it's really quick and simple to have your website with everything you like on it, all the links, all the PDFs, all that stuff that you get sent, and then just have it in, I use phone view as well as desktop view. And one last thing, which is one of those things I probably should have covered right back at the start, which I failed to mention, just like when you're video editing, just like when you're doing everything else that relies on mapping all your files, make sure that when you save this, if I go File, Save Site As, I save it to the same location that all the files are in. Now, for the purposes of this tutorial, I put together this little News Uploads folder, name my site from there. The thing with this is, and the thing with it being a teaching program, is that I know the nature of it. I'm the same. I'm not one of those people who's really, really, really super organized with all my files. They end up all over the place. They end up on different hard drives across different years. You've got different little flash drives here and there with different bits and bobs on them, and you've got however many different clouds of preference that you use. The advantage to this is once it's uploaded and once it's saved, you can go into your site preferences, into your site properties, and you can say, hang on, I only want to publish, when I publish, new content. I only want to publish the things that are brand new, only the things that have been changed, and that's a really neat and tidy little feature. So even if that content is on a flash drive that you're no longer using, if it's on a different cloud server, you can always just publish the new bit and move on from there. So I think,
thank you so much. It's been wonderful.
Yeah, I think we've gotten to that point.
I have a question for you, mate. Yeah, just one question.
Yeah.
That is, can you use the HTML method for intranet publishing within a school?
It depends on your school, but yes. anything that's HTML is obviously going to be able to be uploaded and viewed in browser in any way. The only thing that I can see that being a problem with is if strange websites are for some reason blocked if your Department of Education is whitelisting rather than blacklisting. I know with my Department of Education, if I create a new site, it's fine, but sometimes for the students, I need to then have that website unblocked if it's one of those things that just gets flagged for some reason.
Thanks, Brett. We have run out of time. Thank you so much. It was really insightful. You covered quite a lot in a short space of time. I'm sure that's going to be really helpful for not only the people who've seen this live, but the people who are watching the recording. No more questions on the poll. We've run out of time anyway, so I'm going to stop the recording, but I'm going to ask those who are on just to stay on for a little bit longer. Those who are watching the recording, thank you very much for watching this, and make sure you catch up again with other live events coming up soon. All the best. See you later. Bye, Brett.